You probably heard the headline by now. Home prices are cooling off. And technically, that's true. But it's also one of those headlines that can be really misleading if you stop there. Because nationally, home prices may be cooling, but when you zoom in, market by market, the story looks completely different. In some areas, prices are still rising. In other areas, prices have gone flat. And in a few places, prices have actually dipped slightly. So the real question is not, are home pricings going up or down? The better question is, what's happening in your local market? Because right now, two buyers in two different states can be having completely different experiences. One buyer may be fighting multiple offers, waiving contingencies, and feeling like there's nothing available. Another buyer may be choosing between several homes, negotiating repairs, asking for seller credits, and getting a better deal than they could have a year ago. Same country, same housing market headlines, totally different reality. And in this video, I'm going to break down why that's happening, what's causing the difference between markets, and what it means if you're thinking about buying or selling. And the key to understanding all of it comes down to one word: inventory. Inventory is the market's pressure gauge. Here's a simple way to think about it. Inventory means the number of homes available for sale, right? And inventory is basically the pressure gauge of the housing market. When there are more homes for sale, buyers have more options. When buyers have more options, they don't feel as rushed. You probably heard the headline by now: home prices are cooling off. And technically, that's true. But it's also one of those headlines that can be really misleading if you stop there. Because nationally, home prices may be cooling. Why 2019 inventory matters. Now, you may hear people compare today's housing inventory to 2019, and there's a reason for that. 2019 is often used as a pre-pandemic benchmark. It gives us a way to compare today's market to something that looked more normal before the housing market was distorted by the pandemic. Record low mortgage rates, bidding wars, and the inventory shortage that followed. So when we look at inventory today, the question is, are we back to 2019 levels? Because markets where inventory has climbed back to or even above pre-pandemic levels are behaving very differently from the markets where inventory is still far below those levels. In markets where inventory has recovered, buyers have more choices. That takes pressure off prices. It does not necessarily mean prices are crashing. That's important in many of these areas. What we're seeing is more like flattening, softening, or modest pullbacks. But in markets where inventory is still well below 2019 levels, buyers are still dealing with limited supply. And when supply is tight, prices tend to stay supported. That's why some parts of the Northeast and Midwest are still seeing prices growth. They simply do not have enough homes for sale relative to buyer demand. Meanwhile, some areas in states like Texas, Florida, and Colorado have seen inventory rise much more significantly. And in those markets, prices are more likely to be flat or slightly down. Not because every buyer disappeared, not because the entire housing market collapsed, but because supply changed. That's the key. Price movement is not random. It follows inventory. And once you understand that, the housing market starts to make a lot more sense. Why the maps tell the story. Now, imagine looking at a map of the United States showing inventory compared to 2019. In many states, inventory is still below pre-pandemic levels. Those are the markets where prices are generally still climbing, even if the pace of growth is slower than what it was a few years ago. Even if the pace of growth was slower than a few years ago. But then you have another group of markets where inventory is now above 2019 levels. Those are the areas getting more attention because they're the places where prices are more likely to be flat or slightly declining. According to the data referenced in this housing market update, 15 states plus Washington, D.C. are now above pre-pandemic inventory levels. And that matters because when you compare those areas to home price data, the overlap is hard to ignore. The places with more inventory are also the places where price growth is weaker. That's not a coincidence. That's cause and effect. More homes for sale means buyers have more options. More options means sellers face more competition. More seller competition means pricing has to become more realistic. This is why one market can feel completely different from another. In a tighter market, a well-priced home may still sell quickly. In a higher inventory market, that same pricing strategy may not work. A seller who could have pushed the price a year or two ago may now have to be more realistic and strategic. They may need to make repairs before listing. They may need to offer closing cost help. They may need to be more flexible on items. That does not mean it's a bad market. It means it's a different market. And different markets require different strategies, and this is where your trusted real estate agent can come into play. That's why trying to make a real estate decision based only on national headlines can be dangerous, because the national average may say one thing, but your local market may be telling a completely different story. The national average is hiding two markets. Here is where this gets really important. When you hear that national home prices are up around 1.7%, that number may be accurate, but it's an average. An average can hide extremes. The national number is really blending together two different stories, right? Story number one, some markets have more inventory and prices are flat or slightly down. Story number two, many other markets still have limited inventory and prices are still rising. So when someone says home prices are cooling, they may be right nationally, but that does not automatically mean homes are getting cheaper where you live. And when someone else says prices are still going up, they may also be right. They may just be talking about a different market. That's why the housing conversation feels so confusing right now. People are using national headlines to describe local realities. But real estate has always been local, hyper-local in fact, and right now that's more true than ever. The same headline can mean one thing in Florida, another thing in Texas, another thing in Colorado, and something completely different in parts of the Northeast or Midwest. So instead of asking what is the housing market doing, ask how much inventory do we have locally? How does that compare to normal? Are homes sitting longer? Are sellers reducing prices? Are buyers getting concessions? Are well-priced homes still moving quickly? Those questions, ladies and gentlemen, will tell you far more than a national average ever could. What this means if you're buying. Now let's talk about what this means if you're a buyer, because the market you're shopping in matters a lot right now. If you're buying in a market where inventory has risen, places like parts of Texas, Florida, Colorado, or other areas where supply is back above pre-pandemic levels, you may have more negotiating power than buyer had a couple of years ago. That could mean more homes to choose from. It could mean fewer bidding wars. It could mean sellers are more open to negotiating. It could mean opportunities to ask for repairs, closing cost assistance, rate buy down, or other concessions. But that does not mean every home is a bargain. The best home in the best location, priced correctly, can still move quickly. So the opportunity for buyers is not simply offer low on everything. The opportunity is knowing when you have leverage and using it strategically. For example, if a home has been on the market longer, there may be room for negotiation. If there have been a price reduction, that tells you the seller is managing their expectation. If inventory is high in the specific neighborhood or price range, you may have more options and more leverage. But if you're buying in a higher or tighter market, especially in areas where inventory is low, it would be different. You may still need to move quickly, you may still face competition, you may still need to come in with a strong offer on the right home. This is why buyer strategy cannot be a one-size-fits-all. Your strategy should be based on your local inventory, your price range, your neighborhood, and the type of home you're trying to buy. That's where local guidance matters by your trusted real estate agent, because the right move for that market will be the one that will get you to get your offer accepted. What this means if you're selling. Now, if you're a seller, this may be even more important because pricing strategy is everything right now. In a low inventory market, sellers may still be in a strong position. If there are not enough homes for sale and buyers are still active, a well-priced listing can attract attention quickly. But even in those stronger markets, pricing still matters. Today's buyers are more cautious. Affordability is tighter. Mortgage rates have changed what people can comfortably pay. So even if inventory is low, overpricing can still cause problems. But markets where inventory has risen, overpricing is one of the fastest ways to lose momentum. And momentum matters. Check this out. The first week or two on the market is usually when your listing gets the most attention. That's when serious buyers notice it. That's when agents are sending it to the clients. That's when your home is fresh. But if you come out too high in price, buyers may skip looking at your house altogether. Then it sits, right? Then you reduce the price. Then buyers start wondering what's wrong with it. And eventually you may sell for less than you could have if you had priced it correctly from the beginning. That's the mistake many sellers make and need to avoid. In a market with more inventory, buyers are comparing your home against more alternatives. So your price, condition, presentation, and marketing have to line up. You cannot rely on the market to do all the work for you. You need a strategy. That means looking carefully at recent comparable sales, what has sold recently, not what homes were listed for, not what your neighbor hopes to get, not what prices were doing 2 years ago, what similar homes are actually selling for right now. It also means watching active competition, because if a buyer is choosing between your home and 5 others, you need to know how your home stacks up. Are you priced correctly? Does your home show well? Are there repairs that will turn buyers away? Is your marketing creating enough demand? That's where local agents earn their keep, ladies and gentlemen, not by guessing. By reading the market in real time and helping you make the right moves before the market gives you feedback the hard way. That's what your competent local agent should be doing for you. By the way, if you want to know whether our local market is acting more like a buyer's market or a seller's market right now, I can send you a quick local inventory breakdown. It'll show you how many homes are available, how long they've been sitting, and what that means for your buying or selling strategy. So here's the big takeaway. The housing market is not doing one thing. It's doing different things in different places. Nationally, prices may be cooling, but locally, your market may be rising, flat, or something softening depending largely on inventory. If inventory is back above normal, buyers tend to gain options and sellers need to be more competitive. If inventory is still below normal, prices are more likely to remain supported because buyers are competing for fewer homes. That's why the same headline can create totally different expectations depending on where you live. And it's also why you should be careful about making a buying or selling decision based on only national news because national headlines are designed to get attention. Local data is what helps you make the right decision for your situation. So are home prices falling? In some places, yes, a little. In many places, no, they're still rising. And in other places, they're mostly flat. The difference comes down to inventory. More homes for sale usually means more choices for buyers, less competition, and softer pricing. Fewer homes for sale usually means tighter competition and more support for prices. So whether you're buying or selling, the most important question is not what the national market is doing, it's what your local market is doing. Because where you are matters more than ever right now. And if you want to understand what this means for your situation, your neighborhood, your price range, and your goals, reach out to me today at kasama@kasamasales.com. Let's look at the local numbers together and build a plan that actually fits the market that you're looking in. At the end of the day, the national headline tells you what's happening around the country. The local data tells you what matters to you in your local market. Reach out today so that we can assist you. Thanks for watching.